In small American towns, faith often becomes the center of daily life. Churches host Sunday gatherings, charity dinners, youth programs, and holiday events. Pastors are seen as moral leaders, counselors, and protectors. People trust them with their secrets, their families, and their fears. But every so often, a case emerges that shatters that trust completely. This is the chilling story of Pastor Daniel Morris, a beloved community leader who murdered his own church cook, Maria Lopez. A crime that shook an entire town, exposed hidden corruption, and left people questioning how well they truly knew the man they once called their pastor. Maria Lopez was 51 years old, warm, dependable, and gentle. She had worked as the cook for Grace Hill Community Church for nearly a decade. Her food brought the congregation together. She cooked for Sunday services, charity lunches for the homeless, weekend youth events, and special holiday celebrations. She was known for her kindness, her patience, and her dedication. Maria lived quietly. She had a small apartment, a modest car, and a routine she followed almost the same way every day. Her family described her as responsible to a fault. If she was supposed to be somewhere, she was there early, not late. And she always checked in with her sister, Ilona, no matter how busy she was. So when Maria didn't show up for the church's weekly breakfast event on the morning of May 12th, people immediately noticed something was off. At first, the volunteers in the kitchen just assumed she'd gotten sick overnight. They tried calling her, but no one answered. By lunchtime, when she still hadn't shown up, concern started building. But it was her sister, Ilona, who began to panic first. Maria never ignored calls. Never disappeared. Never broke routine. Ilona drove to Maria's apartment, expecting to find her sick in bed. Instead, she found the apartment dark and silent. The door was locked. The bed was made. The kitchen was clean. Nothing seemed disturbed. Nothing felt out of place, except the absence of Maria. What worried Ilona even more was that Maria's car wasn't parked outside. It was always there unless Maria was at work. So Ilona called the police and reported her sister missing. Officers responded quickly, visited the apartment, and found no signs of forced entry, struggle, or unusual activity. Everything looked perfectly normal, but when they drove to the church, what they found changed the tone of the investigation completely. Maria's silver sedan was parked right beside the church kitchen door. That meant she had made it to work that morning. She had arrived, but she had not left. Police immediately began interviewing church staff, volunteers, and members of the congregation. That's when Pastor Daniel Morris entered the picture in a way no one expected. Morris had been the pastor of Grace Hill Community Church for 12 years. He was known for inspiring sermons, charity work, and his ability to comfort people through difficult times. He was charming, charismatic, and calm under pressure. When detectives asked him about Maria's disappearance, he didn't seem surprised. He didn't appear anxious or emotional. He simply said that Maria had arrived early that morning, as usual, but the two of them had a disagreement over kitchen supplies. He claimed Maria became upset and walked out of the building around 7 in the morning. He insisted she was overwhelmed and needed time to cool off.
She left right after we argued about the kitchen supplies. She was quite upset about it, but I didn't expect her to just disappear.
The evidence contradicts your sermon, Pastor. Where were you really at 10 p.m.?
I was praying.
But detectives immediately questioned his story. If Maria had walked out, why was her car still in the parking lot? Why hadn't she called her sister? Why did she leave behind her purse in the kitchen office? And more importantly, why did multiple volunteers say there was no argument that morning? No raised voices, no confrontation, no signs that Maria had ever left the building. As officers dug deeper, they began collecting statements from people who lived near the church. A few neighbors reported something strange. Around 3 in the morning, hours before anyone arrived for work, they heard a car engine running behind the church. One neighbor said he glanced out his window and saw a dark SUV near the back door. Another reported seeing someone carrying something heavy toward a vehicle. And when police checked the surveillance cameras located at a hardware store across the street, they discovered footage of a vehicle leaving the church property around 3:30 a.m. The vehicle matched the make and model of Pastor Morris's black SUV. Armed with this new information, detectives asked the pastor to come in for another interview. His behavior changed. He seemed defensive, irritated, and evasive. His story became inconsistent. First, he said he woke up at 5. Then he claimed he didn't leave the house until 6. Then he corrected himself again. Detectives noticed something else. He kept repeating certain sentences exactly the same way every time, as if rehearsed. Officers also learned that the church alarm system had been disarmed between 2:30 and 3 a.m. and the person who disarmed it used the pastor's personal security code. With probable cause building, police obtained a warrant to search the church property. They began with the kitchen, storage rooms, and hallways. For a while, they found nothing unusual. But when they reached the church basement, the entire case cracked open. Hidden behind stacks of old communion trays and outdated pantry supplies was a large industrial freezer. Inside it, wrapped in plastic and shoved behind bags of frozen bread rolls, police found a blood-stained apron. Maria's apron, the one she wore every single morning.
I've got something. An apron.
Is that the weapon too?
Yeah, a meat tenderizer. It's covered in blood.
Testing confirmed the blood was hers. Even more disturbing, the handle of a meat tenderizer sat beside the apron and it, too, was covered in blood. From that moment, the case shifted from a missing person investigation to a homicide case. Police immediately began searching the pastor's SUV. At first glance, the vehicle looked spotless and naturally clean. To clean, when crime scene investigators lifted the carpet in the trunk, they found diluted bleach stains. Under UV light, they discovered blood traces and fibers that matched the clothing Maria wore to work that morning. And then, they found something that sealed the pastor's fate, a partial fingerprint belonging to Maria pressed into the lining of the trunk. Detectives confronted Morris with the evidence. His calm demeanor collapsed. He started shaking, sweating, and avoiding eye contact. He insisted the blood was from an old kitchen injury. He said he cleaned his car for spring cleaning. He insisted the fingerprint didn't mean anything. But nothing matched his story. Nothing explained why Maria's car was still at the church. Nothing explained her apron hidden in a freezer. Nothing explained why his SUV was seen leaving in the middle of the night. Then, detectives discovered the motive. After interviewing more church staff, officers learned that Maria had recently begun helping with financial paperwork after a volunteer left the position. She wasn't officially involved in the church finances, but she had access to donation receipts and expense records. A few weeks before her disappearance, Maria confided in a friend that she had seen strange transactions in the books. Large amounts of donation money were being transferred to accounts she didn't recognize. Thousands of dollars, week after week. She told her friend she planned to confront Pastor Morris about it. She believed it had to be a mistake, but the transactions were not a mistake. They were theft. Pastor Morris had been secretly funneling church funds into a private account for nearly 2 years. And when Maria discovered the truth, she unknowingly became a threat to everything he was trying to protect: his reputation, his career, and his freedom. When detectives followed this lead, they uncovered a trail of financial fraud, fake receipts, and forged documents. Morris had been stealing from the church he preached in, and Maria had stumbled onto the truth. That was the moment the pastor decided she had to be silenced. The timeline became clear. Maria arrived at the church around 5:30 a.m. as usual. Morris, already aware that she had discovered the financial discrepancies, confronted her. She threatened to tell the church board. And sometime between 5:30 and 6:15, Morris attacked her in the kitchen. He struck her with the meat tenderizer, killed her, and hid her body temporarily in the basement freezer. Later that night, under the cover of darkness, he moved her body into his SUV, drove to a wooded area 5 miles away, and tried to dispose of it. He cleaned his car, hid the apron, reheated his story, and attempted to act normal. It didn't work. 3 days after the investigation intensified, officers searching a wooded preserve Maria's body wrapped in a blanket. The same blanket seen partially on security footage from the hardware store camera. The blanket came from the church supply closet. Confronted with the overwhelming evidence, Pastor Daniel Morris finally confessed. He claimed it was not intentional. He insisted the confrontation got out of hand. He said he panicked. But investigators knew the truth. They knew he attempted to hide the body. They knew he tried to destroy evidence, and they knew this wasn't panic, it was murder. In court, the prosecution presented everything: the surveillance footage, The forensic evidence, the financial records, the blood-stained apron, and the pastor's shifting statements. The jury deliberated for only 5 hours before reaching a unanimous verdict: guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of tampering with evidence, and guilty of financial fraud. When the judge delivered the sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole.
The evidence is clear and the verdict stands. Pastor Morris, I hereby sentence you to serve a term of life. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
Many members of the congregation wept, some for Maria, some for the betrayal. Some because they couldn't understand how a man they trusted could be capable of something so monstrous. To this day, members of the community still visit Maria's memorial garden near the church. They remember her warmth, her meals, her laughter, and her kindness. And they remember how her honesty and integrity ultimately exposed the corruption of a man who twisted faith into a mask for greed. This case serves as a reminder: sometimes the most trusted figures can hide the darkest secrets. And sometimes the truth comes not from those in power, but from the quiet, hard-working souls who refuse to look away when something isn't right. Maria Lopez deserved justice, and in the end, she received it. This is Hidden Crime. If you want more deep, real, and unsettling cases like this one, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps bring more untold stories into the light.